Samsaradava nalaliraloka Tranaya karuna guna gunatvam Praptasya kalyana gunana vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu ki tana nitya gita Vaditra madhyan manasorasena Romancha kampa shutaranga vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityananam Shingarathan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya bhaktam staniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadana Triptan Harivaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhava Yudhapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshanaasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayo no ratikeli siddhai Yayali bir yukti rapekshaniyai Tatrati Daksharati Vallavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam साक्षादरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भायत एव साध्वी किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि जयंस्तु वांस्तस्य यशत्रिसाद्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamarva, Radha Nilamarva, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Vishnupada Paramanta Prabhajakacharya Ashtotar Sarashishamad ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Saramani Gaura Prajana Krishna Prima Bhakti Datta Parita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhay Charavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakti Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Satguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai नामाचार्य शैल हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तनेक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिनंदन स्मरण गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मवरनाय अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहत्तांग ट्रांसजेंडर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्ता राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय, श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय, टेलो शिव श्री शिवराज नीलमाधव की जय, श्री मय पुनपदीप एक चक्र धाम की जय, परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय, श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मृति सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय, भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर सिंहदेव भगवान की जय, जय गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की, समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय, निताय गौर हरि परमानंदे. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Lad Daine. हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वसा शिलटंका नकालाये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बाहे नरसिंहा हृदय नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे कर कमल वरे नखाम अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे तव कर कमल नखाम अद्भुत अद्भुत श्रृंगार लिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय, भक्त प्रहलाद की जय.
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो एय अभिलाषी राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो एय अभिलाषी जे तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरण होय. कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी. मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिव सदा जुगल रूपरासी এই নিবেদন ধারো সাকিরানুগাতা করো সেবাধিকার দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई न मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदाई न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदाई न भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय.
Krishna, I bow before you again and again. Marijay to obtain the service with Sri Radha and Krishna. Never take shelter of his wishes fulfilled. Take a mess up on him, make him resident of Vrindavan. Marijay the hills of Bentley, residence, and the road to Sri Vrindavan. And as we begin my creation of old, you fast and Radha and Krishna. I beg you to let me follow the guidance of Maharaj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me own my servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always say me love Shri Radha and Govinda. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhavamada Vagni Nivapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamruta Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Parampara Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Itadrushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrisham Yajanina Anuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitamba Jagarishaka Maye Mama Janmane Janmaneshwari Vainandatanuja Kinkaram Paditama Vishame Bhavam Budau Kripaya Tapapara Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakair Chitam Vapukada Tavanama Grane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Prabhusaitam Sunya Itam Jagat Asrishava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatu Lampatu Mat Pranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Varanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namini Guru Trishe Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutarishmatu Bhakti Vedanta Samiti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Visheshnavadi Pasatari Satari. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart over the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays and the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want the cause of the devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your Lord's feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and when the hairs of my body stand on end the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world of your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva or Brahma, to be culturally independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities in the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desire of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jaivancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindho bevacha paritanam pavanidho Vaishnavivo namo. Dhinanta kuch Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaura Pramana. Shri Guru Pranam Mangala ki jai. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam jena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kalamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandiham Shri Guru Shri Jota Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganara Gunata Vintam Tam Sajivam Satitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakambitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Shmate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pachatyari Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shri Varshavana Videvi Deitaya Kripavdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjo Jalakti Madhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaurakarna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaste Nama Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine Nama Guru Kishoraya Sakya Viragya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhe Panabhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sakchit Anandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumesvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhuma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Suprema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Krishna Namaha Nam Sakatatam Nam Bhaktirupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhaktasaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabhakta Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratur Bangur Mama Mandamate Gati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyat Vindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Maner Gopir Gopinatak Striyes Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmasakalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesa Surabir Abhivalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kvanandam Aravinda Dalayataksam Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvana Madhyavam Siratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Gasya Gilendra Dittimanti Basyanti Panti Yanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navyovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavasara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yatpa Padasimya Vichintitatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanta Kotim Yaschaktirasti Jagadanta Chaya Yadanta Dantarasta Paramanustam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyomana Jastataiva Samprapti Rupa Mahima Sanayanabusa Suktarya Mevanikama Pratitastuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Tabirya Evanicha Rupa Tayakalabi Goloka Evani Visata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidayasu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitista Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhuvato Jagananda Koti Kotis Prasesa Vasadari Vibhuti Brinam Tad Brahmaniskanam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Jami Maya Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Visaya Vida Vitaya Manam Sadva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayamanastu Ya Prani Nam Pratifalam Swaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nichidamni Tale Chitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute Suteshu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitas Chayena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shististati Pralaya Sada Vasaktireka Chayevi Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apyasya Chichestatesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitika Yat Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dipachare Hidya Santaram Abhyapetya Dipayate Vivite Samanu Dharma Yastadra Geva Hitchivisnu Tavyati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jaleba Jatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Paramsam Vortim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaikan Isvasita Kalamatavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilja Jagananda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Viseso Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalation Jesu Tejas Riyam Kiyat Pakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Isha Jagananda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbadwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignam Vinanta Malamatsa Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Marutisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagalagrahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutastapamse Brahmadi Kita Patagava Deyasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavinda Mahoswa Karma Bandana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidhati Kinchi Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Saja Pranadi Biti Vatsaya Moho Guru Goro Vitsavya Bhava Sanchintyatasya Sadvisim Taramapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiyakanta Kanta Parama Purishta Kalpatarava Dumabu Mistinamani Kanama Itram Amritam Kata Kanam Matyam Kamanam Abhimam Sipriya Saki Chiranandam Jyotiparam Apitada Swatyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihisavadi Sirabi Byastu Sumaha Nimesa Dakyo Vavajitina Yatra Pisamaya Vajay Switad Vipam Tamaham Iya Golokamitiam Vedantas Te Santakshati Viracha Rakati Paye Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is that spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing, ecstasy, singing, playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the sanctified movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I have my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shishi Radha, and Krishna also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I have my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad, he is satisfied. I have my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conscious pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master expresses the realities at every moment. I have my respectful respectful basis. Now, the Lotus Suite is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I, for my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus Suite is such spiritual master. The spiritual master to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Suite as such spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives benediction of Krishna, and without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Suite of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text 31. No davo nevapimam nuyo yad gunar nadita prabhu atomat vayunam lokam garhayan ihatistatu. Na, not Udava, Anu, slightly, Api, also, Mat, to myself, Nuna, inferior, Yet, because, Gunai, by the modes of material nature, Na, nor, Ardita, affected, Prabhu, master, Ata, therefore, Mat Vayunam, knowledge of me, the personality of Godhead. Lokam, the world. Grahayan, just to disseminate. Iha, in this world. Titastu, may remain. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The specific qualification for becoming the representative of the Lord is to be unaffected by the material modes of nature. The highest qualification of a person in the material world is to be a Brahmana. But since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, to be a Brahmana is not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. One has to transcend the mode of goodness also and be situated in unalloyed goodness, unaffected by any of the qualities of material nature. This stage of transcendental qualification is called Suddhasattva or Vasudeva, and in this stage, the science of God can be realized. As the Lord is not affected by the modes of material nature, so a pure devotee of the Lord is also not affected by the modes of nature. That is the primary qualification for being one with the Lord. A person who is able to attain this transcendental qualification is called Jivan Mukta, or liberated, even though he is apparently in material conditions. This liberation is achieved by one who constantly engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187, it is stated, Iha yasya harer dasya kamana manasajira akilasvatmi avastasu jivan muktasa uchyate. Anyone who by his actions, mind, and words lives only for the transcendental loving service of the Lord is certainly a liberated soul, even though he may appear to be in a condition of material existence. Uddhava was in such a transcendental position, and thus he was selected to be the factual representative of the Lord in his bodily absence from the vision of the world. Such a devotee of the Lord is never affected by material strength, intelligence, or even renunciation. Such a devotee of the Lord can withstand all onslaughts of material nature, and therefore he is known as Goswami. Only such Goswamis can penetrate the mysteries of the Lord's transcendental loving relationships. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So in this verse today is extremely important because Uddhava was a topmost pure devotee. And Krishna chose him to explain the mysteries of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, the disappearance of the Lord, and other mysterious things about Krishna to not only Vyasadeva but also to Narayana rishis in Badarik Ashram. So he is topmost devotee because he is completely surrendered to the Lord. He has no attraction to material world or material sense gratification. He is above the influence of the three modes of material nature. So he is qualified much more than a Brahmana. A Brahmana is still under the influence of the mode of goodness. So a Brahmana cannot become a bona fide guru. Only a person who's transcendental to all the gunas and is situated always in loving devotional service to the Lord is qualified to be a spiritual master, or in other words, a representative of Krishna. So here we see out of the entire Yadu dynasty, and not one of them survived because the Lord wanted them to go back to Godhead with him. However, the Lord chose Uddhava to continue representing him on the earth and not come back to Godhead, but stay here and go to Badarik Ashram and instruct the mystery of his annihilation of Yadu dynasty and his own disappearance. So we see, Prabhupada says, as the Lord is not affected by the modes of material nature, so a pure devotee of the Lord is also not affected by the modes of nature. That is the primary qualification for being one with the Lord. A person who is able to attain this transcendental qualification is called Jivan Mukta, or liberated, even though he is apparently in material conditions. This liberation is achieved by one who constantly engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And that's explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so Prabhupada gives an alternate translation to that verse, a very important verse. It's quoted in the Bhagavad Gita also. And let me see where that's quoted. And it is quoted in the 5th chapter, 11th verse, where it says, Kayana manasa buddhya kevalar indriyar api yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma sudhaye. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with the body, mind, intelligence, even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. So in the purport to that, first of all, Prabhupada says, when one acts in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sadachara, can be easily performed by acting in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187 describes this as follows. Iha yasya harer tasya kamana manasajira akila svapyavastasu jivan mukta sauchate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. So, let's see. Here, in Canto 3, Chapter 4, verse number 31, he translates the same verse. Anyone who by his actions, mind, and words lives only for the transcendental loving service of the Lord is certainly a liberated soul, even though he may appear to be in a condition of material existence. So the meaning is the same, the words are a little bit different. But what does it mean? It means that such a devotee has no false ego. He doesn't believe that he is the material body, or that he possesses the body. He believes the body belongs to Krishna and should be used only in the senses and the intelligence and the mind. Everything should be used in Krishna's service. He knows that he is not this body and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything, so see, when you see women holding up signs, this is my body, the government has no right to be involved in the issues of my body. Right? So they have these signs like that, my body, my body. If I want to kill my baby, that's my body. The government doesn't have any right to tell me I can't kill my baby. So this is all nonsense, absolute nonsense. And it's all based on, I am this body. And whatever I want to do to the body, I can do. No, that's sinful to abort a baby. It's one of the most sinful things a person can do. It's murdering. But somehow or other, they've rationalized that it's a heroic act. It's not murder. So this is nonsense. And as long as this nonsense continues going on, this country is going to suffer terribly. Not only this country, all the countries. In India, there's many more abortions than in America. Many more. So just imagine why there's so much turmoil in India. So, therefore, the pure devotee who's transcendental to the modes of material nature believes that he belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, intelligence, words, life, wealth, etc., whatever he may have within his possession, to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. Dovetailed means connected, very strongly, in an indelible way. There's no way of separating anymore from Krishna. So, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego. What's the false ego? I am this body. I identify with this body and all the extensions of this body, like immediate family and more distant relatives, etc. And so it just keeps expanding, this I am this body. The concept of I am this body keeps expanding to nationalism, internationalism, universalism, and so forth. There's no end to all the false identifications one may have. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego that leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Now, when it says he is one with Krishna, that's not one in the sense of the Mayavadis. It's one in the sense that he is completely surrendered to Krishna, and whatever Krishna wants, he will do. So in other words, there's no, let's say, difference between Krishna's desire and the devotee's desire to please Krishna. So they have, just like in a family, if all the members of the family follow the father or the grandfather's dictates, then there's no difference. If you meet this son who is completely in agreement with his father, you're meeting the father also, because they both have the same let's say, worldview of themselves and God and so forth. So, this verse is also in the Bhagavad Gita, and now in the third canto, fourth chapter, verse number 31, also it's being mentioned, but it gives a little more information. It says, Uddhava was in such a transcendental position that thus he was selected to be the factual representative of the Lord in his bodily absence from the vision of the world. So, unless one is accepted by the Lord and empowered by the Lord, one cannot be an effective preacher. It's not that one knows all the verses of Bhagavad Gita and can repeat them. Just like this one lady was talking to me about how her daughter had memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. I said, she can say it all in Sanskrit. She said, yes. I said, okay, now she has to learn the meanings of all those verses. And she was like devastated when I said that. Because just reciting the verses, blah, 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 like that, doesn't mean you know what it's all about. Yes, it is an achievement to be able to recite them all in Sanskrit. But unless you know the meaning of them, what use is that? You're just going to say the verses, but not know the meanings. So this is what's unfortunate about Hinduism, is they because they don't accept bona fide spiritual masters, they always understand half the hen, not the whole hen. So there was once a farmer who had hens, and one day his son said, "Dad, you have to spend a lot of money to feed these hens." He said, "Yes." But I got a great idea. He said, "What's that?" "Why don't we just cut their head off? That way you don't have to feed them. You just get the egg." So these are like crazy ideas, right? So this is exactly, well, my kid knows all the verses of Bhagavad Gita. And I said, well, now she has to learn all the meanings of the verses. And she was like shocked when I said this, So simply reciting the verses is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, right? But you have to know what they mean also. You have to be able to explain them, So this is the logic of half the hen, right? So you won't get the egg from such a hen, right? And her daughter won't really become a devotee unless she understands the meaning of those verses, and how to apply them. Like Prabhupada, when he preaches, he'll take a phrase from a verse, like for example, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. Such a devotee is very, very rare, and he is a Mahatma, a real Mahatma. So he doesn't quote the whole verse, and he'll in a lecture he might quote parts of verses like 20 times, 20 different verses, right? And he does that on purpose so that we have to become much sharper in recognizing where that verse is. I'll give you an example. In almost everywhere it's like that. He says, the Brahma Samhita says that it is very difficult to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedas. But he is easily understood from a pure devotee like Uddhava. Well, did he mention where it is in the Brahma Samhita? No. He's leaving it up to us to know where that is. Well, of course it is. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesu Durlabham. It's that third line, the first two words. Vedesu Durlabham mean it's impossible to understand the Vedas simply by reading them or by studying it on your own. You have to hear it from bona fide devotees. Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto. You can only understand it. Adurlabham, Vedesa Durlabham means it's impossible to understand. But then he says Adurlabham Atma Bhakto. But it's easy to understand if you hear it from a pure devotee. Okay? And we repeat that verse every day in Brahma Samhita, right? It is the Brahma Samhita 5.33. But he will not, he teases us by not mentioning where that verse is, so that we have to develop the depth of knowledge, where just one phrase of a verse we should be able to immediately understand what verse it is. It takes time, of course. So also in this purport, one must be authorized by the Lord to understand and preach Krishna consciousness. And he says, unless one has such authorization, one cannot understand or preach the devotional service of the Lord. So that's why so many devotees have difficulty preaching, because you have to be authorized to preach. And how do you get authorized to preach? You have to regularly hear it spoken by genuine devotees, ask questions, and keep what you accept. What is a term in archaeology that you are when there's an archaeological, let's say, project, and they're excavating the earth to unearth the, an ancient village or an ancient this or an ancient that. So you have to excavate or you have to search deeply into the meaning of the Vedic verses. And Prabhupada does that in a very, very expert way to help us understand the verses, not simply recite them, but to help us understand the verses. So he says here, unless one has such authorization, one cannot understand or preach the devotional service of the Lord. Well, therefore, before that he says, the Brahma Samhita says that it is very difficult to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedas. But he is easily understood from a pure devotee like Uddhava. So simply reading the Vedas, simply quoting the Vedas, is not enough. One has to actually hear it from a pure devotee who has been authorized to preach. And what is that authorization? It comes from the spiritual master. And when he thinks that a person is ready to become a bona fide preacher and basically a guru, then he authorizes that devotee to do it. So how do we know that we are authorized? Well, because we're steadily engaged in devotional service, day to day, minute by minute, hour by hour. And our mind is not attracted to anything material. It's attracted only to Krishna. And we don't actually see things material. We see the presence of Krishna in everything. That universal vision of the Lord. Bahunam janmanam ante ganavam mam prapadyante vasudeva saramiti samahatma sudurla baha. Let's take a look at that verse, the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which says, 7th chapter, verse number 19. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Well, okay, after many, many births and deaths, well, we've already gone, all of us, many, many births and deaths to come to the human form, and we have, even in the human form, to come to a civilized human form. What is the difference between a human form and a civilized human form? It's following regulative principles. So therefore, when we get initiated, we have to promise to follow the regulative principles. And if we don't follow them, then we're not a devotee. And if we follow them strictly, then you have begun, or we have begun, spiritual life. Because spiritual life is based on following the regulative principles, chanting Hare Krishna, eating only prasadam, and hearing regularly Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees, and regularly associating with devotees in the temple and doing devotional service, and eventually learning how to worship the deities and getting qualified for that, and going on Sankirtan, and eventually preaching. So, being able to speak to people and enlighten them in Krishna consciousness, get them interested in it. So, it says here, the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals, after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. Now, I know one Brahmana, he can quote many, many verses, but yet he's still anchored in the material world. So that's why he says in this purport that of today, that it's not enough to be a Brahmana. One must become a Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul, in order and to be chosen by Krishna and be effective in preaching. So it says, but since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, to be a Brahmana is not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. So I spoke to this Brahmana recently, and I said, look, how old are you? He said, 59. I said, okay. You should give up your job immediately and become full-time devotee. Oh, he said, how can I do that? I won't get my pension. I said, but I did that when I was younger than you. And I wasn't thinking about getting a pension. And I had full faith that somehow or other, by Krishna's mercy, I would be able to maintain myself and my family. But he was not ready to hear that. And I said, just give your job up. We need you. I want you to be full-time pujari in our new temple. And I said, you know all the rituals, you know all those things. But now you have to take a risk for Krishna. And you should have absolute faith in Krishna. And I said, anyway, look, you're also doing so many pujas and things like that. You can continue doing all that. You don't need your pension. Anyway, you'll get your, because you work so many years, you'll get your Medicare, Medicaid, all those things, and you'll get your government pension. He said, no, but I want it for my company also. I said, you don't need it. You have to depend on Krishna. But he was not ready to do it. So, but see, Prabhupada convinced us when I was only 21 years old. He convinced me to give everything up, and I've never regretted it, and I never felt as if, if I only got my PhD, I would have this position, that position. No, I got a much better position without being a PhD. If I got the PhD, I would be anchored in the material world all those years. Right? So we have to have faith in Krishna. We have to have faith, not be afraid to take risks for Krishna. Although I'm not telling you right now to quit your job, but I'm just, the Brahmana, he should have quit his job because he's a highly trained Brahmana. But you see, that's why it says, the highest qualification of a person in the material world is to be a Brahmana. But since a Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, to be a Brahmana is not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. That's a huge statement. He's not in the position. It's not sufficient for becoming a representative of the Lord. One has to transcend the mode of goodness also and be situated in unalloyed goodness, unaffected by any of the qualities of material nature. This stage of transcendental qualification is called Sudasattva or Vasudeva. It's called Vasudeva Sadachar. also. In another place he uses that term, Vasudeva Sadachara. Sadachara means being blessed with many good qualities, right? Sadachara. So, Vasudeva Sadachara means you're blessed, being transcendental to the modes of material nature with many wonderful qualities. Okay, so this is what we have to teach our kids, Sadachara, to be endowed with many wonderful qualities, and eventually come to the point of being transcendental to the modes of material nature, including the mundane mode of goodness. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I have to take someone. What time is it now?
7.
Huh?
7 o'clock.
Yeah. I have to take someone downtown this morning early. So we'll stop right there. There's no time for questions, and we'll continue tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.